Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the. Sorry, I needed to make sure that everything was recording. With the 110th episode of Book of Hours, playing as the artist for the first time. Now, our main focus for today is going to be on leveling up, specifically leveling up Sickle and Eclipse. I did want to spend a bit of time talking about Earl Bryan's Field because this is a fairly significant location. It does have some. The main reason for this has an attachment to the ending, and I don't want to go too far in depth in terms of where it goes because it would be nice to have some follow up. But I figure going into the things that are immediately obvious when you unlock it would be good. But there is also going to be a little bit of time when we're on pause as I try to figure out how I'm going to move up Sickle and Eclipse. I think that's going to be my biggest challenge between now and autumn, so I'd like to get that properly out of the way. And then, because it's raining today, it would be nice if I can translate that into... I think my best, honestly, would be Desires and Dissolutions, although, honestly, we could also wrap up Applebright Euphonies. Both of them are going to require 5. But... yeah, we'll see. All right, so let's talk about Earl Bryan's Field first of all. So just, we did read the description before, but I'll do it again just because we are on a new video. Earl Bryan's Field. Bryan is another one of those leitmotif names that recur all through Brandkrug's long histories. This one was Brian of Brittany, who was named Earl of Cornwall by King William after the conquest. In 1068, the sons of the deposed King Harold mount raids on Cornwall, and Bryan funds the construction of a fortified gate and the Watchman's Tower, initially in wood, to protect the abbey. In return, the abbey gives shelter to a yew tree he's brought from Brittany that flowers in divers colors. This is that tree, hollow now and rotting slowly from within, taking its time to die gracefully. It has not flowered in living memory, and the colors of its flowers cannot now be told, but Bryan's brothers were called Alan the Red and Alan the Black. So this is an outdoors location. If you click on the yew, the Earl's yew, since the conquest, this has been waiting for you. The irreverent might even call it a yew tree. So you can add a soul, and you can add your journal. Now, if you do it here, present what? An ability to win a victory or record a history in your journal to win a major one. So, sunset beneath the tree. Hush House lives again. Perhaps that's all I want. Some of the very best librarians have worked well, lived quietly, left the world a better place. This will end your game. Ambitious librarians might prefer to keep looking for another victory. Contented librarians understand that to restore the house and find the tree is victory enough. Or, of course, you could choose this ending anytime you like and begin with another librarian. So this is one of the reasons why the game argues so strongly against throwing away your journal. So my journal won't survive a second soaking. This will destroy your journal, which will make it impossible to complete the game. You'll be stuck, but you can do it if that's what you really want. The endings of this game are attached to the journal, and the journal is the place where you will place it at the tree. Now, right now, this is the one, and as the game says, this is a legitimate victory. There are many librarians here who aren't necessarily known for, they're all interesting characters, but some of them have sort of these very large impacts, where others are maybe more minor characters to our understanding. But in this case here, it is kind of interesting if we were to choose to wrap up the game at this point, because there's just so much that's left undone. In particular, we have this opportunity to learn more about Brian of Brittany. And in this case, we'd say, you know what? Sometimes you're just not going to figure all of this out. We did our job and we'll move on. And of course, there might be some implications in terms of choosing to go a little bit further and pursue some of the major victories. These things might come with a cost. And so in the end, the one thing I want to do is that in Cultist Simulator, there are endings. And there are sort of minor and major victories. The thing about Cultist Simulator is that the endings that you get are going to be influencing what you will see when you begin another descent. So there's always going to be a draw of 3 different legacies that you can pursue, and usually one of those legacies is going to be determined by the ending that you got. So In this case here, it's a little bit different for Book of Hours. Book of Hours has sort of these galleries of endings that you've achieved. And I think there's something kind of nice. Like, I like this idea of sort of choosing where I go. I have not actually done the ending that was just mentioned here, but this is why this is an important location and why I was a little interested in opening it up. It's also opened up a path to the Shrieking Gull Cloud. The gulls have made this their kingdom, and they have grown intolerant of interlopers. We will have to pacify or discourage them. So I believe we only had 11 Sky with Mr. Kill and the Daidumos. We can give him the T, which should allow us to get 12, or alternatively we can try and find a way of boosting up the edge. But that's one area that we can investigate a little bit later. But right now, I did say that the main focus was going to be on figuring out how we're going to level up Sickle and Eclipse. And the best place for me to start, honestly, is just to take a look what's available in the library. So we've got Edge and Moon to work with. My short list that I worked out for myself was Contradiction, Fear, Intuition, Confounding Parable, Old Wound, and Wormwood Dream. But I want to make sure that I haven't left something out. So the Confounding Parable is because it's basically intuition with some extra Sky. Cheerful Ditty is Heart and Sky, so not relevant there. Savage Hymns, Scale and Sky. Pattern, Forge, and Knock. Earth Sign is Nectar and Scale. Salt, I can never remember Salt. I think Salt does actually have a moon, so that should actually be enough, but let's keep reading. Solace is Heart and Sky. Storm is Heart and Sky. Gossip is Grail and Rose. Beguiling Melodies are Grail and Sky. Fear we talked about. Contradiction we talked about. Intuition we talked about. Hindsight, Winter and Scale. Regrets, Winter and Forge, or was it? One of them was Winter Scale, one of them was Winter Forge. We've got Foresight, which is Lantern and Forge, I believe. Secret Threshold. Oh, that's right. Some of these are a little weird. The Bittersweet Certainty is Lantern and Winter, so we don't worry about that one. I feel like Secret Thresholds or Stolen Secrets, I know they're Knock focused, but I feel like there might be a moon aspect to them. So I would say Stolen Secret is a pretty likely candidate. And Secret Thresholds, Knock for sure. But if I recall correctly, maybe it was Rose that was off of that one as well. I don't know. I don't feel as comfortable writing that on the list. Revelation is Lantern only. Satisfaction, Grail. Why can't I remember what the other one for Satisfaction is? Heart, I think. And Impulse, which is our Moth and Nectar. And then on top of that, we've got Sun's Weaknesses. Excuse me. Grail, Lantern, and I want to say Moth, but that feels kind of wrong. Anyways, I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. The big thing here is that I've written down 8 candidates for Edge and Moon, and that's good because that means that I don't need to worry about the Old Wound and the Wormwood Dream, at least at the start. So I'm probably going to want to leave aside a Tryst. But let's... there's a couple of reasons why I would want to read in some of these early. So, for instance, the Contradiction, the Confounding Parable, the Salt, and the Stolen... Actually, most of these are things that Mrs. Kill can't give me. But basically, all of these things I'm not going to be getting from someone like Mrs. Kill. And so, as a result, I would like to... we've read this a few times. Let's do Observations of the Peacock Door. Well, that one we've done recently as well. But we'll do it anyway. Okay, excuse me. So, contradiction, fear. Fear and intuition we're leaving over. Confounding parable is one that I want to pull from... from the books. I don't even remember where we were on these, but let's do the Serenity of the Blackwood. Salt. And then the Stolen Secret. I'll use the other fet for that one. And that is a Fusine text. Okay, so I'm taking a couple of chances with this, I think. The nice thing is with the rain, I'm also going to have some backups in terms of leveling up Desires and Dissolutions or Applebright Euphonies. I'd have a mild preference for Applebright Euphonies because then I'm not competing with Sickle and Eclipse for Moon. But for now, I'm just going to let sort of time pass. At this moment, what I want to do is try and make sure that I have the elements of the soul that I need to be able to do the things that I want. Everything else is kind of a nice secondary one. If possible, it'd be nice to get two lessons in. Auroral Contemplations is my best opportunity for sort of extra follow-up, but we'll see. Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. So we're just going to keep chatting. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. Now, if I get a chance, I'll also try to make an Ascendant Harmony, but that's not a major concern right now. The Ascendant Harmony is a nice to have at the end of the day. Well, not exactly at the end of the day, because I need 90 seconds, but you get the idea. The other thing that's nice about bringing in Mrs. Kill, even though the list of memories that I'm going to be pursuing is quite narrow in terms of things that she can give, is this is going to be seeding some of the future work that I have in terms of clearing out things like Applebright Euphonies or Desires and Dissolutions. So for instance, we are now 2 of 5 on our way to leveling up Applebright Euphonies. And what's nice about that is that if I'm at the end of the day and I'm just looking to bang out a couple of extra levels, that can be very helpful. If I want to try and do something a bit more ambitious with Desires and Dissolutions, we build up, we maybe see if there's extra Grail or something like that to work with, and we move forward with that. But honestly, sometimes just knowing that you have the option to pursue something a little bit more aggressive, or that you have a shot, sometimes that can mean, okay, I'm going to hold back on some elements of the soul rather than using fixing and mending like I'm doing right now. The Serenity of the Black Wood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which it is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Serrano Blackwood is an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travelers in a wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign. And that they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. They never forget that proverbial footloose, the centipede, but they never forgive her either. So there's the confounding parable. We have The Sea Does Not Regret. Isan Fekri, one-time Secretary Salvant of the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brankrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. The sea does not regret the tide, Fekri writes, for when the tide is past, it leaves its traces on the sand, which traces are the sea's memory. Fekri is a keen fisherman and speaks glowingly of the fish suppers of Brankrug. He also admits that his enthusiasm for the bounty of the sea has altered him, that before he came to Brankrug he consumed only those things found in the earth. I was the greater thereby, but all of us give up what we were to become what we are. So that did wind up giving us Moon, that's good to know. Observations of the Peacock Door. Ningala of Lagash discusses the Peacock Door, the highest door available to mortals in the Mansis, a rent, an imperfection, an abrasion. Notably, the book is written in Vac, which, by some accounts, is another aspect of the Peacock Door itself. Ningala addresses this by apologizing courteously to the door and the language at the end of every section. The Peacock Door did not exist, Ningala says, in the days when the gods from stone entered the Mansis. They used the fanged key to open the Savage Door, a door not usually available to mortals. Speech, as the initiates of Kion would have it, is a wound. I fear that through that wound the blood of the Mansis flows even now, and that one day speech will be an end to dream. I fear that, but I fear the alternative far more. So there's the contradiction. And deaths and their evasions. Father Stanislav John Schaller writes of the means and limitation of passage between the orders of the Mansis. No long names, hours. Unusually, Father John has written this book in Fusine, for, he says, a special secrecy. He speaks very cautiously of the exceptions that sometimes can be made to the edicts of Chancel and Calyptra, and hints at the means by which he successfully returned a lantern long to flesh. This could possibly be a reference to Teresa. Schaller mentions most cautiously of all that he has been permitted to see a book that speaks more deeply on the matter, but that it was surrendered into the shadow of a covenant stone of the Watchman's Tree. It can be retrieved if the 99th wink is reserved under the Edict's liminal, and we may be reading that book reasonably soon. So, okay, so as we were expecting, we did get more in terms of our moon. Now that's good to know. So essentially, I'll make a couple quick notes here. Just put a little dot beside the ones that I already have. So in order to upgrade Sickle and Eclipse, we just need 2 more of these. So my hope here would be Fear and Intuition. Those are 2 things that we can get at the end of the day. I don't want to use the Old Wound or the Wormwood Dream just because that involves giving up more. But what else do we want to try and do here? So essentially with Mrs. Kill, we've got everything that we need. Once we level up Sickle and Eclipse, I'm going to have to give up 1 item, so in this case probably the Old Wound makes the most sense. Probably a sensible move would be... I'll use the shaft at Ambrose's desk. Wait, why am I using the shaft at Ambrose's desk? I was going to get a memory, but... Oh, right, I was going to reread the scroll. Oops. Alright, and that we need Crack Track. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Okay, so today's focus right now is just sitting down and seeing what memories Mrs. Kill generates for us. And this gossip is really, really working well for me. So I'm debating at this point, given where we're at with Desires and Dissolution. So we've got 3 of 5 required to level up Applebright Euphonies. I am quite tempted here to bring in actually, I don't even need to get that clever with it. I just bring in a Beguiling Melody and a Beguiling Melody and the Savage Hymn. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. Yeah, so I was a little reluctant to throw more of these elements of the soul into the day, but I feel pretty comfortable with this approach. So here's what we're gonna do. We need the Savage Hymn, so, well, you know, we'll match it to subject. So let's do the Wind's Ruin. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. And I will somewhat reluctantly use the whist here. I will read Unhatched Hymns. And that either, again, it either gives me Desires and Dissolutions or Applebright Euphonies. It's really my call in terms of, or actually, no, sorry, it has to be Applebright Euphonies because Cheerful Ditty is not Grail. But again, I can work with that. So what this has done is this has left me a bit lower in terms of elements of the soul to work with. But a lot of this is going to rest on, okay. That already puts me ahead with leveling up Applebright Euphonies. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Yeah, so this is kind of why I'm a little reluctant sometimes to commit elements of the soul to getting certain, certain results, just because in the end, if I get a lucky break, in terms of what the assistant is reading, or not reading, but giving me in terms of memories, I might change the direction that I go. The drawback is if I wait the whole day, then there's potentially duplicates. So for instance, Satisfaction and Gossip are useful both for Applebright Euphonies and Desires and Dissolutions. And so if I don't use them, then potentially they're going to be generated again, and then I'm short. But there's really no fixed answer. It's kind of what it really is, what you feel like in the end. Okay, the Sun Disfigured, a scroll of anthropoderm parchment written in the golden ink called Uzalt. The author of this text calls herself the Elegabline. Sometimes she seems to be Sunset Celia, the Watchman's name. Sometimes she seems to be Lady Tryphon, the Grail-Long. It is unclear whether these are separate entities or the same person. It may be unclear even to the writer. The flaws in the Sun's plan are elucidated. The Sun's plan itself is never entirely clear, but it is a project of some kind to enter, possess, or surrender to the glory, the pure light above the mansus. This book suggests ways in which that plan might fail. And it is Grail, Lantern, and Moth. So if I want, I can apply it towards leveling these things up, but I would prefer not to at this point. Just because it's nicer to have this available in a pinch rather than rely on it. Okay, we did just recently read this, but Unhatched Hymns, hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworks and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The Hymn of the Phases celebrates the Meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is the truth, which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The Hymn of the Reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of Shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. I was thinking a little bit about this line here, so I'm curious about one thing. So if we say that they venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. So it does raise an interesting question here, right? Because you could say, okay, so madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf. So does that imply wolf to Meniscate, Meniscate to sun and rags to madrigad? Or do we try and take something like this? The Church of the Unconquered Sun acknowledges only a handful of hours. The sun in rags or splendor, the Meniscate, the madrigad, the watchman, and reluctantly the wolf divided. So if we see that alignment, right, we have madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, which would imply that wolf goes to sun and rags to Meniscate. Which, if I'm completely honest, I think fits better, in my opinion. But those were the two indicators in terms of where I think, because like I think it's pretty clear that it says "and so on" is written knowing full well that the reader does not have the information required to work out that determination. Again, my suspicion here is that particular room is the most informative in terms of the sanctioned hours into the Church of the Unconquered Sun, and that's probably the best basis. But it's an indicator, right? You can see, like, this is kind of interesting. This applies to more than just Book of Hours, but whenever you're doing some kind of research or whenever you're trying to figure out what's going on, I could imagine that there's probably a rather good mystery game behind this, actually. You know, in the end, so much of this comes down to, well, you have claims that are made by people, but ultimately you need to ask, like, is this a reliable source? What kind of weight do you put on this source? And it's not even that the source is is intentionally misleading you, but they could be misinformed. They could be, they could be having a laugh. I remember there are, I'm trying to remember the exact textbook, but there's like a physics textbook that comes up every once in a while on a Twitter page I follow, which is a meme page. Was it a meme page to check every time MATLAB crashes or something along those lines? And it's basically it's a notorious high-level physics textbook, so it's not something I would be able to approach at all. But it is somewhat notorious for the fact that, like, very complicated concepts are treated as obvious, and many fairly substantial results are left as exercises to the reader, where I think most readers would say that is well beyond their capabilities. And again, it is a very well-regarded book, but it's just one of these things where when you're dealing with certain authors, what they take as given is maybe not necessarily going to be the same as yours. So, anyways, sorry to bring physics into your humanities game. Doesn't make sense to me either. The Wind's Ruin, but that's because I haven't tried. I should. The Wind's Ruin, the second volume of Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of his time as a raider, when his name was not Thomas but Toke, scything the sea, striving for plunder. Abbot Thomas clearly regrets his storm years, and much of the book is taken up with his thoughts on penitence, but there are hints that he also misses those years and the companionship of his ship brother, Trygeave. So there's our beguiling melody. And there's satisfaction. So there's that duplication we were talking about. There it is in Camino Tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So let's try and make something happen with the Applebright euphonies. Now, I do want to start being careful at this point, because I am potentially going to need to use 2 elements of the soul in order to make to do the level up for Sickle and Eclipse, and that is the day's goal by far. But again, I feel okay leveling up the Applebright euphonies, because in the end we do want to dispose of all of these lessons before whenever Numa comes. So satisfaction, gossip, solace are definitely ones that I'm throwing in, and then cheerful ditty and savage hymn. So the reason why I'm prioritizing those is that they are only useful for the Applebright euphonies. Once those are used up, we don't have any other use for them. So at last I am something of an authority in this. Now, if we can, the beguiling melody would be nice to apply to desires and dissolutions, but we would need 4 other memories from that. Another thing that's worth keeping in mind, right now I have the core and the Faust to be able to get the missing memories, but what I'm going to do now with the Faust is I am actually going to use that Nazarene Fife, or try to at least, to generate the Ascendant Harmony. Nope, I'm 1 short. I mean, I could try and use the beguiling melody. Oh, you know what the silly thing is? I actually could have used, yeah. So this could have worked out if I had used the rain instead of the... nuts. Well, we don't know what Mrs. Kill is going to give us yet, so I don't need to make the Ascendant Harmony today if it really comes down to that. But this rain does suggest to me that I should maybe try for Desires and Dissolutions. Again, we're kind of going to have to get lucky, but it's not impossible. What this does mean, though, is I might want to think a little more carefully about what I want to try and do with the Sweet Bones. For instance, do I want to try and get another element of the soul up so that I can generate more memories? Well, there's the satisfaction. The skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. Oriflammes thanks you for your continued interest. This book may become available for purchase again later. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. Okay, so let's say here that we're going to reserve the tryst for the confounding parable, salt, contradiction, stolen secret. The way it's set up right now, the core and the Faust are my get out of jail free card when it comes to generating the intuition and the fear. Neither of which, by the way, we should really expect from Mrs. Kill. So I'm going to be getting a metal back. So that gives me 3 total elements of the soul. It's a long shot, but I am sitting on quite a bit of money, so I think I am going to try and bring back an element of the soul. In this case, it's going to be the Arab, just because the Arab is available both for Sickle and Eclipse and Desires and Dissolutions. Better now. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. Now, we're getting close to the end of the day, but I'm also near the end of the time. I'm at the end of the time. Okay, that's good, though. So there it is and can be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So I'm feeling pretty good about leveling up Desires and Dissolution. So what we'll have here... we can take this core and we can apply it. So I've got my Faust and my metal to generate the emergency. Actually, I'm short one, but technically I've also got the sun's weakness to throw at the problem, and I think that's worth taking. But yeah, we're in better shape than I thought we would be. So we've got what we need to be able to level up Desires and Dissolutions. And we're still going to be able to level up Sickle and Eclipse. So all in all, I'd say that's a good day's work. But we are going to leave that for next broadcast, which will be tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.